Hello, folks. JD Wessel back here with another Wildcat breakdown. Great to be back. It is March, and you know what that means. I am joined by Jaden Cover and Craig Sullivan here for some March Madness bracket breakdown. I guess you could call it that, guys. How you doing today?
Oh, great.
I'm doing great.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear, of course. And this is always our favorite time of the year. We have not only brackets on our phones, we have brackets in class. We print them off for everyone else, and we kind of give our best opinion. We're the sports guys. That's what we like to do, talk about sports, as you can guess. That's why we're here. But, folks, we're going to just get right into it. So, first off, Selection Sunday was just yesterday. I actually had a chance to go down to the DJ Sokol Arena to watch the Blue Jays get selected in, and obviously they already knew they were in, but just cool to see the guys, go crazy. But when Creighton got selected into the bid that they had against K-State, you saw them excited for K-State, but then they realized they were with Virginia. So I think Creighton, they kind of realized, okay, we're going against the number one team this next round. Let's just worry one game at a time. Craig, me and you kind of talked about what we could see from a potential, Virginia getting upsetted in the tournament. We always see one seeds go down. You really like the idea of Virginia getting upsetted. Where do you think they could be falling first?
Well, I think they're going to have some trouble coming out of the Creighton game potentially with Marcus Foster. I do think they will squeak past. Virginia's a team, they play everyone close. They play very low scoring. They don't have a lot of offensive firepower. I think that's going to end up hurting them when they play Arizona. I don't think they have the bigs to match up with DeAndre Ayton. So I think Arizona is the team to watch going to the Final Four on that side of the bracket. And one upset I would say is probably Davidson over Kentucky. A lot of people are going to pick Kentucky because they like the name, but Kentucky this year has not been that great.
Okay, so you like, and that's just in the South region. You have those couple upsets. So, Jaden, what do you think we could be seeing for a couple upsets, and who's maybe your favorite out of the South?
I went along with Craig. I think Davidson beats Kentucky. I think this is the worst Kentucky team since the year after Anthony Davis left, when they forgot who they got upset by in the NIT, but it was just that team was terrible. But then I also have Loyola. I think they have a chance to upset Miami, and San Diego State I think is a hot pick, and I think those teams are about as equally matched as you can see in a 6-11 game.
Yes, for sure. And I'd also have to go along for the South. I picked Loyola Chicago, and otherwise, I really like all the high seeds in those games usually. Well, besides Texas, I actually have Texas and Loyola Chicago both pulling the upsets to play each other in what would be, I believe, the Sweet 16. So a lot of assumptions. Again, just assumptions. We don't really know what could go on. It is March Madness. We've already seen a ton of madness in the state basketball tournament. I mean, a lot of overtime games and a lot of these qualifying games to get into the tournament for the NCAA tournament went into overtime too, and a lot of buzzer beaters. So a lot of crazy stuff has happened. So again, quick rundown. You guys we all like Arizona out of the South, though.
Yeah, I think Arizona is going to end up being a trendy pick, which is a little surprising. I mean, being the Pac-12 winner, having the potential number one overall pick. I think Virginia is kind of a weak one seed in their bracket. At Cincinnati, while Cincinnati's a tough team, I don't see them making it. Just play Arizona. Texas, I think, can end up being there. Potentially a Tennessee. It'd be very interesting, but I think Arizona is a very favorable path to the Final Four.
So kind of interesting. We all have Texas and Arizona in the Elite Eight, which, looking at it, I could almost guarantee under probably 10% of the brackets have Texas going to the Elite Eight. I mean, what is his name on Texas?
Mo Bamba.
Mo Bamba. He's just returning, I believe, or he might have returned for the last couple games of the tournament, the Big 10 or Big 12 tournament. But I really think he's gonna have an explosive tournament, and I think he can definitely do a lot for this Texas team, and obviously get them to the Elite Eight. So I guess we'll see. But to move over to the West, there's definitely a lot of good teams in this side of the bracket. We're looking at Xavier as a 1 seed, North Carolina 2 seed, and Michigan. They came out of completely nowhere. They'd probably be sitting at a 6 or 7 seed, I'd say right now, if they wouldn't have made the run they did in the tournament, maybe even lower. But who's your guys' early favorite for this side of the bracket and why?
Well, I definitely like Gonzaga. I feel like they set up more favorably playing Xavier on their side. Xavier is also, I feel like, very weak one seed. There aren't a lot of top of the line one seeds in this tournament. I think Gonzaga can end up playing Xavier or possibly Florida State, Missouri. I'm not sure Xavier lasts out of the first weekend. But Gonzaga is the team I would definitely pick here, and the upset I would say is San Diego State over Houston. I don't really like Houston that much. I think San Diego State has the scoring power to pull it off, so I think that would be a very interesting one.
I got North Carolina going out of there. I think that when you get down to the tournament time, North Carolina knows how to play, and they consistently show they can play. And I think I have Gonzaga playing in the Elite Eight, which repeated the national championship last year. It'll be interesting, and I think it's going to be a great game. And the hard part about this bracket is I have all 1 through 4 going to the Sweet 16, and that's kind of, with the upset that were prone to happen, it's going to be tough if all those teams actually make it there.
Yeah, for sure, I'd agree, Jaden. And you're talking tournament teams. You can't leave out Michigan. They are a elite program when it comes to the tournament. Whether or not they're in the Big Ten, Craig, me and him go way back with Big Ten fights. But, I mean, Michigan, whether or not you like it, they show up for March every single year nearly. And I think they not only beat North Carolina, but they're going to beat Gonzaga in the Elite Eight and go into that Final Four game against Arizona.
Yeah,
But
definitely, I think Wagner's a very big matchup problem. Abdul Rahman's a very good player from Michigan. I just think when they play North Carolina is going to know more about how to win those close games. I think it's a very close game, Michigan, North Carolina, in the Sweet 16. But when you're picking games that are that close, go with experience.
Pretty much a coin flip, yeah, and experience. But yeah, some of the upsets I have South Dakota State and San Diego State, the 12 and 11 seeds in there, and I also could see a close game between Missouri and Xavier, maybe even a potential upset. I mean, Xavier, they've been hot all year it seems, but they've had their moments, and we saw it in the Big East tournament against Providence. Providence made a heck of a run, but losing that late in the season, it kind of shows that this team is beatable because for the longest time they went on a solid run, solid winning streak. But I definitely think that Xavier team could have some trouble in the tournament with matchups and everything. And Michael Porter Jr. is he's just coming back, so we'll see what he can do for Missouri. I think that one could honestly be one of the better games of the tournament.
Well, and you mentioned Providence. I think that's I think I have them up. I'm not really an upset, but I think they could beat Texas A&M, and I think they're going to give North Carolina a game.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I've definitely been lingering on picking Providence over North Carolina, but like Craig said, the experience I think just comes into play where North Carolina, they're not going to lose a close game in the turn even necessarily.
Yeah, I also don't think that Providence, coming from obviously a decent conference in the Big East, I think they'll have trouble with Texas A&M. I mean, I'm not a very big fan of the SEC, but I think Texas A&M is a little bit underrated. I think they will be able to handle business at Providence, and then North Carolina will dispose of them pretty easily too.
For sure. So let's move on to the Big Bad East region with the big old Villanova, probably one of the best, if not the best, tournament team out in the field right now. A lot of people have them favored. I think their picks in Vegas are 7-2, which is the best odds so far. So, looking into this side of the bracket, what we have is a couple of experienced Big East teams. We have Butler and Villanova. I mean, Butler's, not one of the best teams. They go against Purdue if they win their first round game against Arkansas. And then we kind of move into what are we going to see here with the West Virginia, Texas Tech type teams? I mean, going by the years, these two teams, Texas Tech and West Virginia, they kind of been shaky in the tournament. What do you guys think we could see coming out of the East?
Well, definitely when you have Bob Huggins over at West Virginia, that's going to be a coin flip. He is not a very good track record in the tournament. I think Murray State beats them. That's just a big upset. I pulled 12-5. Nova draws really favorably here. I mean, Purdue's the only team I think could give them some trouble if they make it to the Elite Eight. You got two Big 12 teams here with Texas Tech, West Virginia, and then Your other 4 is Wichita State. Wichita State, some people think, make a run. I think they might give Nova a little bit of trouble if they make it their Sweet 16, but Nova is one of the most talented teams in the tournament and definitely the most talented 1 seed.
So do you think with Villanova, guys, real quick, Jaden, do you agree that Villanova might be one of the best shooting teams in the nation? I mean, we definitely know that they're one of the best shooting teams in the nation. Do you think they're going to show up for the tournament and do what they usually do? Or do you think they'll fold like they did last year against, who was it that they lost to a team early? I
Yeah.
believe it was
Well,
the second round,
I
actually.
think people forget that before they won the national title in 2016, Villanova was the consistent 1 through 4 seed that would get bounced early. They weren't a good tournament team. It's up until recently that they've really been considered tournament favorites because they've had a history of March Madness or March struggles outside of the 2016 national championship. Now, put that aside, I think they make it to the Final Four, and I think that we talked about West Virginia, Wichita State, and Texas Tech. I don't think Texas Tech beats SF off, and that's my my big prediction for upsets. And then I think West Virginia, I think will play Nova in the Sweet 16. I just don't see Wichita State making that jump this year. They're kind of just stuck in the mud, and I think they're going to remain that way. But I think Villanova is a big favorite out of the East, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I definitely have to go with Villanova, and I actually have Villanova winning my bracket. But yeah, I could definitely see some troubles just on the bottom half of that East bracket with potential Florida, Texas Tech, Butler, Purdue. I mean, those 4 teams alone are all, Florida and Butler, they can be pretty good tournament teams, and I think Purdue, they're having a great season so far, and I think they could definitely make some noise. I'm going to have to go with Villanova against Texas Tech, though, in the Elite Eight. Craig?
Yeah, I think Nova Purdue will be very interesting. I think Nova will win, but Purdue, I think it'll be a very close game. I could see easily Purdue winning that game. Nova is just too talented in that side of the bracket, though. I could easily see them walking out unscathed, especially if an upset happens and Purdue isn't there. The rest of that bracket's not that great, I don't think, to play against Nova.
Alrighty, so for the Midwest, we have teams like Kansas. Craig, you love Auburn in this tournament.
Oh, geez, Auburn.
Michigan State and Duke.
In the Omaha bracket in the Midwest. This is
yes.
We definitely drew a lot of the blue bloods here with Duke, Kansas, Michigan State. I mean,
for sure we could be seeing some interesting matchups here in this bracket. And in mine, I have NC State defeating Kansas. I'm just going to start off by saying that. I think, I don't really know anything about NC State. I know that they have beaten Duke, North Carolina, and Clemson all. And so that's my reason for picking NC State to win against Kansas, but eventually lose to Clemson. I think Clemson is going to make a Elite Eight run due to their solid play in the regular season. I mean, I know I think they actually dropped their first game to Boston College in the ACC tournament, but I still think Clemson, with how fast their team runs on the floor, they play great offense. They can shoot the ball well. Being in the ACC, they didn't do too bad for themselves. I believe they finished 5th overall behind Miami, North Carolina, Duke. Just a couple teams to name. But, yeah, I think Clemson's going to make a solid run out of nowhere. You always have those teams that show up out of nowhere. I mean, last year we saw the 7 seed South Carolina actually make it to, I believe, the Elite Eight, maybe even the Final Four. Yeah, so I think Clemson's going to be one of those teams that come out of nowhere and completely surprise everyone, but I have Michigan State headed to the Final Four out of that side.
And I know you had talked about NC State upsetting Kansas. I don't think NC State beats Seton Hall. I know you're a big believer in the Big East being just a good conference, and I think they are, and I think it's a competitive conference, and I think Seton Hall is prepared for that, and I don't think NC State, I don't know much about them, but I just have a gut feeling. I do agree with you, Clemson making a run, but I still think Kansas, although I don't think they're a good tournament team, they're going to do what they always do, get to the Elite Eight and lose to Duke. And it was tempting to pick Michigan State over Duke, but they've Michigan State has a history of making my bracket go awful because they just can never win the games they should be winning. So I have Duke in my Final Four out of the bracket.
Okay, Craig,
Yeah.
what's your opinion on Michigan State? I know you're a Big Ten guy.
Well, I'm a Big Ten guy. I think Michigan State's a very good team. The trouble is they have had some consistency issues throughout the season, and this is a one-game elimination tournament.
Mhm.
I see them making it Sweet 16, Elite 8. I don't think they're going to be able to beat Duke and Kansas. I think they'll falter somewhere there. Kansas has the easier path to the Elite 8, so I think with Devontae Graham, Bill Self, even though this is not the most talented Kansas team, they will make it to the Final Four.
Yeah, and I think one game you got to look at is Duke versus Iona. I know Iona defeated Duke a couple years back in the tournament. I believe it was actually the 15 versus 2 seed, and Iona took the win. But okay, to move into the Final Four, I think a lot of us have the same Final Four. Right now, I'm looking at Arizona out of the South, Michigan from the West, Villanova from the East, and Michigan State from the Midwest. What are you guys looking at?
Arizona, Gonzaga, Kansas, and Nova.
Then I've got Arizona against North Carolina and Villanova against Duke.
Okay, so the last little prediction here. Who is your final teams, and why do you pick them to win the 2018 Division I Men's Basketball Championship? Craig, go ahead.
I'll take Arizona and Kansas. Take Arizona winning it all just because of DeAndre Ayton. When you're in the tournament system, you definitely want one player that can carry you, and he is probably the number one pick in the draft and has been a beast on both sides of the court. I think he is going to carry Arizona to the championship.
For sure, and I think for DeAndre Ayton only being a freshman and being as dominant as he is, I believe he is going to the NBA, probably going to be a lottery pick. If he goes this year, I believe he could be a top 5 pick. I don't know what team would want to pass on him, but so Jaden, who do you have going to the national?
I've got North Carolina in the national championship, and I'm still kind of struggling with Villanova Duke. It's very tempting to have a Duke North Carolina matchup in the championship. I hate both teams, but I could see it happening, and Villanova's talented, and that'd still be 2016 champion, 2017. So right now, I think I'm going to pencil in Nova. I think they're just a talented group this year.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that after a year off from being national champions, they're going to return as national champions.
Alrighty, and I have Arizona against Villanova, and I have the Wildcats of Villanova winning, not Arizona. And so, folks, there is definitely a lot of predictions going out. And we were just 3 guys from Omaha, Nebraska making these predictions. But, folks, feel free to pick any of our brackets. I mean, I wouldn't be offended if someone wanted to use mine. But, again, this will be a very interesting tournament. Us 3 are so hyped for this. March Madness, it's back. We're ready. A lot of inconsistent teams this year. There's no really dominant team. Many could argue Virginia, but a lot of us think otherwise. Folks, really all we can say is let's have a fun March Madness. Fill out your brackets. Send them in to us if you'd like. And let's get crazy for this March Madness season. This has been JD Wessel.
Jaden Cover.
And Craig Sullivan.
With the Wildcat Breakdown.